Hidden deep within China's vast territory lies a mountain world rarely seen in travel guides. From mist-covered peaks to sacred ranges concealed behind ancient pine forests, each mountain region is like an isolated universe. Many areas remain untouched, shaped by geological forces over millions of years. Cliffside trails, temples perched on sheer slopes, and valleys cloaked in clouds year-round create a multi-layered, mysterious landscape. Now, it's time to explore a side of China you've never known. A majestic mountain world almost forgotten by the modern world. Meili Snow Mountain rises as the highest peak of the Hengduan Range, over 22,000 feet, untouched by human footsteps. A climbing ban in 2001 followed an avalanche killing 17 Japanese mountaineers, seen by locals as a sacred warning. Gravity data reveal a strong, positive anomaly beneath Meili, possibly linked to ancient magma, still warm deep below. Biologists found fungi and alpine plants surviving only on Meili's rocks, enduring intense wind and ultraviolet light. At about 16,000 feet, the dense negative ions alter breathing and cause mild dizziness among those who stay long. When dawn light strikes the frozen peaks, Meili stands silent and sacred, as if the earth itself holds its breath. Fanjing Shan is regarded as a remnant of the ancient supercontinent Rodinia, formed over 1 billion years ago, preserving the Earth's early crustal history. The ancient red sandstone layers contain pure quartz that reflects sunlight at 60 degrees, creating a faint morning glow. Its enclosed ecosystem holds 95% endemic insect species, with 68% unable to exist beyond the mountain. At roughly 7,000 feet, sound intensity drops by more than half, immersing the range in surreal quiet. On clear days, quartz reflections form a soft halo around the summit, known as the mountain's breath of light. Through its age, seclusion, and deep stillness, Fanjing Shan endures as a meeting point of geology, life, and meditation. And mysterious climate year-round. The mountain shelters more than 100 natural caves, some descending 160 feet, once used by monks for meditation and scripture keeping. Spanning more than 114 square miles, its ancient limestone and basalt formations weathered over millions of years, forming dense ravines and sheer cliffs. At dawn, white mist covers the pine forest, while the first sunlight filters through the clouds, reflecting softly off damp rock faces. On the cliff walls, hundreds of carved inscriptions record ancient vows and poems, enduring as silent witnesses of faith across centuries. Though ranked as a National 5A site, Mian Mountain preserves its original calm, where travelers can touch a rare and timeless stillness. Mount Huashan rises on the eastern edge of the Qinling Range, where ancient granite and steep forests create one of China's most dramatic landscapes. Over 20 surviving Taoist temples cling to its slopes, embodying harmony between humanity, nature, and the cosmos. Its highest peak reaches 7,070 feet, with massive rock faces piercing the clouds like a blade through the sky. Archaeological records show that ancient sky worship ceremonies were held here over 2,000 years ago, making Huashan a spiritual center of the Northwest. Han, Hui, and Tibetan villagers have lived at its base for generations, known as Guardians of the Mountain, for their strength and devotion. Mount Huashan stands not only as a religious icon, but as a challenge to meet nature in its purest and most formidable form. Awan Gorge plunges over 3,000 feet into the Taihang Range, where vertical cliffs shape an unusually narrow corridor of stone and wind. Some stone bridges from the 19th century still stand, locked by gravity alone, preserving ancient craftsmanship without any cement. The gorge emerged from a massive uplift of the Earth's crust, cut by 8 underground streams that have flowed for millions of years. Travelers have reported faint vibrations underfoot, a micro-movement that makes the entire canyon feel alive. From satellite view, the gorge appears as a red scar slicing through Taihang, glowing amid endless grey mountains. In complete silence, visitors hear their own heartbeat, as if resonating with the living pulse of the planet. Mount Wudang compass the northwestern mountains of Hubei, where forests, cliffs, and ancient temples merge into China's most sacred landscape. Its thousand-year-old architecture hides among pines and stone, reflecting harmony between nature, religion, and Taoist philosophy. The mountain is known as the birthplace of Tai Chi, where humanity seeks balance between body, spirit, and the universe itself. UNESCO recognized it in 1994 as the only heritage complex uniting imperial power and Taoist spirituality in perfect form. Visiting Mount Wudang, you can walk suspended corridors through the clouds, touch ancient tiles, and feel the breath of time itself. Mount Wudang is more than a heritage site. It is a journey inward, where humanity meets its reflection through the eternal beauty of nature. Yandang Mountains are an ancient volcanic range in eastern China, where wind and rock combine to form a surreal highland. Inside its volcanic walls, geologists once found trapped lava bubbles holding ancient air from the Cretaceous period, proving its immense age. Spanning more than 175 square miles, the region shows weak magnetic fluctuations that disrupt compasses and digital signals. Scientists observed faint moonlight reflections on old lava surfaces caused by silica minerals preserved since the last eruption. At around 3,000 feet, wind rushing through narrow cliffs creates low echoes that feel as if rising from within the earth. After millions of years of solitude, Yandang endures as a remote land where stone and silence conceal Earth's forgotten memory. Mount Lao is the highest coastal mountain in China, where the boundary between land and ocean merges into a breathtaking panorama. The range extends more than 54 miles along the coast, forming a horizon where waves, rocks, and clouds share the same rhythm. Its massive body of ancient granite was sculpted for millions of years by sea winds and waves, leaving shapes both sharp and enduring. The air, rich in natural negative ions with salt and pine fragrance, gives every visitor a sense of calm and renewal. On full moon nights, locals say silver light from the rocks and sea fuses into a glowing ocean of light seen nowhere else. Mount Lao offers an unforgettable experience as you stand before the sea, hearing waves strike the cliffs and feeling Earth breathe with you. Maijishan Mountain is an isolated red sandstone peak about 500 feet high, carved by ancient artisans for over 1,000 years. Many caves sit 200 feet above ground, where workers once hung from ropes carving and painting against wind and stone. Since the 4th century, more than 200 caves and 10,000 clay figures have formed one of Asia's greatest religious arts centers. A massive quake in 734 destroyed a third of the eastern caves, yet later dynasties rebuilt them, blending artistic styles across ages. The statues use clay mixed with silica and plant fibers, giving them elasticity that kept them intact through centuries of earthquakes. Today, Maijishan Mountain endures in damp silence, a timeless witness where art, faith, and history remain alive within stone. Mount Tai is China's oldest sacred mountain, formed more than 500 million years ago and deeply tied to ancient civilization. Its summit, rising about 5,000 feet, was where emperors offered sacrifices to heaven and earth for 3,000 years. Over 80% of its land is covered in primeval forest, home to 1,000 plant species and trees thousands of years old. At sunrise, light passes through ancient granite, casting a pale golden band that stretches across the valley, a rare natural sight. With its geological age, spiritual heritage, and living history, Mount Tai was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987. Kanas Lake in far northern Xinjiang, near the Russian border, is the only freshwater lake in China that drains toward the Arctic Ocean. Its level shifts nearly 10 feet each year, a natural breathing pattern that science still cannot fully explain. In late autumn, thick fog can linger for days, making the entire lake disappear from human sight. Around late September, sunlight reaches the lake for only 5 hours daily, producing a unique split of light across the water. Since the 1980s, over 30 reports have described a massive creature moving through the lake, leaving shadows over 50 feet long. The 80-mile approach through 3 unlit passes remains a quiet challenge for travelers seeking silence and untouched wilderness. Mian Mountain rises over 8,400 feet, where Zhangye Danxia, on the northern edge of the Lues Plateau, is known as China's Land of Colors, almost entirely uninhabited. Some cliffs rise more than 1,500 feet, formed from ancient red sandstone, compressed and lifted through millions of years of erosion. Historically, the region was considered a natural forbidden zone where sharp terrain and dry winds made life nearly impossible. Desert winds with almost zero humidity sweep year-round across the rocks, producing a dry, whistling tone like the planet's breath. In 2008, NASA satellites recorded the area with Asia's strongest spectral reflection visible clearly from low orbit. After millions of years, Zhangye Danxia still keeps its natural hues standing as one of Earth's most unique geological wonders. The Kilian Mountains rose over 50 million years ago from the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, marking an early phase of the Tibetan Plateau. At more than 13,000 feet, pale lichens cover the rocks under dry, thin air, and sunlight harsh enough to burn exposed skin. Ancient ice cores preserve primitive viruses never identified before, keeping their molecular structure intact for tens of thousands of years. Since 2021, optical devices have detected faint blue lights glowing across the ice at night, a phenomenon still unexplained. The range continues to uplift about 1/10 of an inch annually, driven by ongoing tectonic movement deep beneath the crust. The Kilian Mountains remain a natural frontier between dry land and the northern extremes, where silence itself becomes audible. Mount Song is an immense ancient geological region of China, where sedimentary rock layers formed over 2.5 billion years ago, preserving Earth's primeval history. A seismic study in 2017 revealed buried architectural foundations about 65 feet below the ground, remnants of a forgotten civilization. Within only 15 miles, geologists identified 7 consecutive tectonic eras, forming a complete stratigraphic record rarely seen on the planet. At roughly 65 feet deep, archaeologists discovered a spiral-carved stone believed to be an ancient astronomical sign still undeciphered. When strong winds sweep across the slopes, Mount Song emits a deep, resonant tone, the so-called breathing of stone, that astonished researchers. Mount Song is not only an ancient mountain, but the living axis of Earth's heartland, where magnetism and time blend into one. Jagana appears like a stone fortress, enclosed by highlands at more than 9,800 feet, where mist and clouds cover the valley. In 2009, it was listed among 10 lesser-known yet most unique mountains in China, remembered for its pristine silence. Sheer limestone walls, deep gorges, and enclosed valleys give a feeling of seclusion, like an isolated world among floating clouds. Though called the Eastern Little Switzerland, its climate and culture differ greatly, and that contrast defines its special appeal. At night, the land turns silent, and the dark roofs glow faintly under a sky full of stars brushing ancient cliffs. For photographers, Jagana is where light, color, and stillness converge into a layered and almost surreal landscape. Mount Gonga rises over 24,790 feet, standing at the meeting point of the Tibetan Plateau and China's cold western sky. Beneath the massive iron-rich basalt and red soil disturb magnetic fields, making compasses drift and navigation tools fluctuate unpredictably. Formed through ancient plate collisions, the mountain hosts more than 150 glaciers deep, ice forests, and nearly vertical rock faces. At sunset, the frozen slopes glow red, like molten metal, an optical blaze that fades within only a few minutes. In the 20th century, an error in measurement once led explorers to believe it was the tallest mountain on Earth. For climbers, Gonga is not only a challenge, but a true frontier between life and the limits of human endurance. Mount Taibai towers within the Qinling Range, rising about 12,360 feet, where northern and southern climates meet amid forests and ice. In just a few hours of ascent, travelers cross 4 distinct climates, from humid woods to the timeless snow above. Rock layers formed over 2 billion years ago were carved by ancient glaciers, leaving round valleys and rare shimmering metallic stones. The mountain's magnetic field causes compasses to drift a few degrees, giving climbers the sense of walking through a world without direction. On bright, moonlit nights, the snowy summit reflects silver light across the forest, forming a glowing sea that moves like silent waves. Mount Taibai humbles every visitor, yet allows them to hear the vivid resonance of the living earth beneath their feet. Hailuogou extends across the eastern slope of Mount Gonga, where ice, forest, and vapor merge into a rare alpine landscape. Glacial flows move through valleys lined with ancient trees, blending frozen matter with enduring green life. It holds the world's lowest latitude glacier, with its terminus only about 9,350 feet above sea level. Recent studies show that the central glacier here moves faster than the global average, proving Hailuogou's strong response to climate change. The main ice mass slides nearly 3,300 feet down the slope, forming layered vertical walls unique among world glaciers. Visitors often say Hailuogou reveals the fragile border between majestic beauty and the raw power of nature. Yungu Mountain stretches across Shaanxi's highlands, where limestone karst and ancient ice coexist in a uniquely structured landscape. Inside the mountain, Ice Age caves maintain stable conditions year-round, serving as a living laboratory for scientists. Its highest peak rises about 5,340 feet, with over 4,000 feet of vertical relief, forming cliffs and cloud layers. Recent geological studies reveal that Yungu's ice and rock layers preserve traces of ancient volcanic dust, reconstructing East Asia's climatic past. Temples and corridors built along stone ridges reflect the lasting harmony between faith and the raw mountain terrain. Visiting Yungu Mountain, travelers encounter not only frozen and rocky wonders, but also a culture still alive through centuries. Shennongjia, across the limestone mountains of northwestern Hubei, where ancient forests still act as shields of central China. The landscape feels surreal, with clouds grazing peaks, roots gripping rocks, and valleys wrapped in dense green mist. With a UNESCO-protected core of about 283 square miles, it showcases a rare multi-layered high mountain ecosystem in Asia. Biologists have recorded over 4,000 vascular plant species here, including hundreds found nowhere else on Earth. The tale of Shennong gathering herbs endures as a symbol of wisdom and harmony between humanity and the wild. Today, Shennongjia stands as a destination for research and reflection, where visitors confront the true scale of nature itself. Longhu Mountain in central Jiangxi, where the Danxia landscape forms red sandstone cliffs and winding rivers like ribbons of nature. When you stand at its base, the towering walls appear meticulously carved by time and the forces of water and wind. Covering more than 101 square miles, with nearly 100 peaks, each massive formation holds its own identity and structure. Archaeologists have found traces of ancient metallurgy on some cliffs, suggesting this was once a Taoist center of ritual and study. Along the slopes, hanging coffins rise over 1,000 feet, revealing funerary customs preserved for millennia. Today, Longhu Mountain stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a living testament to the balance between nature, faith, and human endurance. Qomolangma rises along the border of China and Nepal, where geology, climate, and human endurance converge at the planet's ultimate limit. Formed over 60 million years ago from the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, its ancient seabed layers were thrust toward the sky. Standing at its base, colossal ice walls and sheer cliffs reveal the planet's primal architecture exposed before your eyes. At altitudes above 26,000 feet, the death zone begins, where temperature, pressure, and oxygen reach levels unsustainable for life. More than 200 climbers rest forever on its frozen slopes, leaving behind solemn reminders of humanity's will to transcend its limits. Qomolangma remains a mountain of paradoxes, where absolute beauty and ruthless power coexist, reminding us of life's fragile worth. Tianchi unfolds along the northern slopes of the Tianchi Mountains, where lakes, forests, and snow converge into a landscape both vast and surreal. Surrounded by dark pine forests and snow-capped peaks, the still water mirrors the clouds like a giant mirror on the plateau. The crescent-shaped lake stretches 11,000 feet long, 4,900 feet wide, and 344 feet deep, formed by the melt of ancient glaciers. Today, Tianchi stands not only as a scenic wonder, but as proof of Earth's enduring beauty and elemental power. Baiishi Mountain in Hebei stands out with white marble formations over 700 million years old, stretching across the steep slopes of the Dehang range. These layers once formed an ancient seabed uplifted about 140 million years ago, leaving geological strata carved by time itself. In 2015, UNESCO recognized it as a global geopark for its rare ecosystem where forest and stone exist as one unified realm. Here, you can walk on a 95-meter glass bridge, suspended 6,200 feet high, looking down into misted depths and feeling your heartbeat echo. Dehang Grand Canyon covers western Hunan, where ancient karst terrain is carved by rivers and forests into a vast, majestic gorge. In some areas, the canyon narrows to just 164 feet wide, while cliffs rise over 2,600 feet, enclosing travelers between Earth's towering walls. Dehang is recognized as one of China's most active karst regions, a living record of erosion and geological evolution over millions of years. The Miao people maintain their rituals, festivals, and dances, turning the canyon into a cultural landscape within a realm of stone. Mount Tianmen in Zhangjiajie, Hunan, is famed for its massive arch piercing the summit, regarded as a heavenly gate linking earth and sky. The entire massif, formed from limestone over 200 million years old, still bears traces of an ancient ocean across its surface. The natural arch, rising 430 feet high and 187 feet wide, symbolizes the meeting of two realms where humanity meets nature's edge. A 7.5-kilometer cableway carries visitors from the city to the summit, known as the world's longest sky journey through clouds. Here you can step across a 60-meter glass walkway, perched at 1,400 meters, gazing down into a bottomless chasm below. Leaving Tianmen, you realize you have not just climbed a mountain, but crossed the boundary between the real and the unreal.